Hey guys, what's going on? It's Patrick and welcome back to the channel Double Double Games. If this is your first time here, you like what you see, you like what you hear, hit that like button. If you really like it, also consider subscribing. You know, I do videos every now and again. Sometimes it takes 3 years. If you really like what you've seen here today, what you heard, if you agree with what I had to say, if you disagree with what I had to say, comment down below, hit that bell notification. YouTube will give you a notification as to when I upload. So yeah, that's pretty nifty. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the whole Microsoft Xbox catastrophe that's been kind of going on for the past 2 or so weeks. Beginning of October for sure though. They are currently rebranding, well, they already have rebranded Xbox Game Pass with the new 3 tiers, as well as gave them I was going to say a bit of a price increase, but a substantial price increase to Xbox Ultimate. At some point too, I would like to make a video regarding the new handheld that Microsoft has released, the Xbox ROG Ally X, as well as the regular Xbox ROG Ally. I think it's a pretty neat little handheld, but I would like to discuss that in a future video instead. And then also the possibility for next gen hardware. When will that be coming out? How much is it going to cost? Is it even going to be coming out? We'll see, but for right now, let's talk about Game Pass. So if you haven't heard, Xbox Game Pass has had a little bit of reconstruction in terms of their Xbox Game Pass tiers. They're doing a bit of a rebranding right now, and they've renamed the 3 different tiers, or I guess they've renamed 2 of them really. Xbox made an announcement and a little nifty video showing these rebranded tiers and little cards explaining the different offers that they now have. The tiers themselves are now called Essential, formerly known as Core, Premium, formerly known as Standard, and Ultimate, formerly known as, well, formerly known as Ultimate. Ultimate pretty much just stayed the same in terms of its name, and by pretty much it is still the same as Ultimate. Personally, I kind of like the switch up of the names, you know, like from a consumer standpoint, it just makes a little bit more sense. You know, at face value, it just looks more streamlined and proper with what we have going on with other subscription services. And for someone like a grandparent or a parent that isn't really indulged in video game media, they might not necessarily know, right? So we have the original 3. You know, we have Core, we have Standard, and we have Ultimate. So changing from Core to Essential, you know, that just sounds like the essential experience. You need this experience. Premium sounds like a better experience than Essential to me. And then Ultimate, it sounds like everything that is encompassing Xbox Game Pass. That sounds like the ultimate experience, the experience that you want to have. So from this standpoint, personally, I think it just makes sense. You know, Essential sounds like that bottom tier, Premium does sound like that middle tier, and Ultimate sounds like that top tier that you should or that you need to get if you're like the ultimate gamer, right? I think as a grandparent or a parent that really doesn't follow the video game media, this rebrand or this rename, whatever you want to call it, it just makes a little bit more sense at face value, that like for people that really aren't well versed in gaming, because like I mentioned already, it kind of shows in the name what the best or what the worst experience is, but all over just kind of knowing that you need to have this Xbox Game Pass experience. You need this experience. That is what I get from this rebrand anyways. And I think it would make sense from a regular Joe consumer standpoint that this is what you need to get. Now let's talk a little bit about the rework with the tiers. So with the renames of these tiers, they also decided to add a little bit more to these tiers and not just price increasing. With that being said, it's all pretty positive in terms of what is actually being added to these. Starting off with Game Pass Essential, we now have access to cloud gaming, which we didn't before, and it is also unlimited. And with that being said, all across the board, Essential, Premium, and Ultimate, it is all unlimited cloud gaming, which is super awesome to be able to utilize that with the lowest tier possible with Xbox Game Pass. On top of that, Game Pass Essential now gives you the option to use it on both console and PC, whereas before you needed Game Pass Ultimate to have access to the PC version of Game Pass. And lastly, they're now marketing it as 50 plus games, like that little small library that they had, versus the 25 plus games that they had before, if that makes sense. And now with Game Pass Premium, just like Essential, you get the unlimited cloud gaming, and you are also able to use it on console and PC. Nothing has really changed from like that standard premium edition, but like this is still a really cool additive for sure. Now we're going to actually get into the meat and potatoes of Game Pass Ultimate. Game Pass Ultimate is adding 75 plus day one games. That is a lot of video games to be promising your consumers, you know? Like, does Microsoft and Xbox really, like genuinely with their whole heart believe that they will be able to promise this to their players? You know, like the player base is going to expect 75 plus games. And what happens if they underachieve, you know? Like, are they going to be held accountable? Are they going to be like, hey, here's a refund because we only gave out 65 games this year versus the 75 plus? Honestly, I do think that they're kind of overextending themselves at this point, and I think they're just going to have to like restructure Game Pass again. Furthermore, they're adding cloud gaming into like a higher tier of it, so it's like more high definition, it's quicker, the resolution, all that stuff, like it's just a way better experience. And I think that is funny that like it's just a flick of a switch and it's like, oh wow, my cloud gaming experience is so much better than what it was before. Like, why wasn't this always a thing? Because they want more money. But this brings up the question, what if you're in a country that just doesn't have the greatest internet service and provider, and you want to utilize everything that Xbox Game Pass Ultimate has to offer, right? You're trying to utilize cloud gaming, and your internet's still choppy, you know, like it's just not working for you. Then what? You know, you're not really benefiting, but you're still being charged an arm and a leg for this, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Lastly, being added into Game Pass Ultimate, it is the Fortnite Crew and the Ubisoft Plus Classic catalog. You know, like if you want to play old Ubisoft games, great, go for it. I'm sure you might have a bunch like in your backlog, like from Xbox 360, Xbox One, all that stuff. Maybe your OG Xbox too, that like you can just already pop in the disc and play. And then with Fortnite Crew, it's like, sick, yeah, like Fortnite Crew, like I'm already paying for that. This is just a big benefit to my Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So I don't know, like I guess that's a plus. You know, like all of this stuff at face value, I do think it's great for the service. But the big thing that Microsoft isn't giving us is time. Do we actually have the time to play all of these games and utilize everything that Game Pass has to offer? You know, most adult gamers, we have full-time jobs. We have part-time jobs just to make ends meet. We also have kids. We also have kids that have hobbies of their own, you know, like driving them to hockey practice, driving them to ballet. You know, I don't have kids. I have dogs and cats. So like, I haven't had to experience that. But like still, you know, like there are gamer adult parents. When do they get the chance and have the time to utilize everything that Xbox Game Pass has to offer? Finally, we're going to be talking about the pricing of all of this and what I genuinely think about the rebrand, the restructure of Game Pass. And by the way, all of this pricing here in this video is going to be in Canadian dollars because everything is just presented in American dollars. You know, like everything in terms of gaming, it's always USD or the British pound or the Australian dollar. What about CAD? What about us Canadian dollars? You know, you have a whole ass market up north of the border of the States. Like, what about us? So here you are, my fellow Canadian friends. This one's for you and me. Essential is jumping up to $13.99 from its original value of $11.99. Premium is now $17.99 from its original value of $16.99. So that's not too bad, just $1 jump. And the previous $2, not bad. Ultimate with the biggest price jump is now $33.99 from its original price of $22.99. Which, when this was announced, so many people that were subscribed to Xbox Ultimate, they ended up just jumping ship, and saying toodles. They didn't even care. They don't want to be part of that Xbox ecosystem anymore. Like, I don't blame them. I'm not a part of it now either. I understand inflation, right? Like, things do end up getting a little bit more expensive year after year. You know, like milk. It might be an increase of 50 cents one year and then 20 cents the other year. Eggs. It might be a 25-cent increase one year and then 4 years later it's a dollar increase, right? Like, but to just over the past year and a bit increase your prices 3 or so times, like, that is way too much. What about your Xbox Game Pass subscribers that were there since day one, you know? What about this grandfather pricing? What is going on with that? There's nothing. Make your day one consumers feel valued. And Xbox and Microsoft are not doing that for its gamers. That sucks. And that's really shitty from you guys. You're a billion-dollar company. Come on, step it up. Not to throw Nintendo under the bus either, but like, they are charging $99 for a game now here in Canada, where it used to be $79.99. Mind you, it's a Switch 2 edition game, but still, that's so fucking much. $100 before tax. What is going on? Why? Now, jumping back to Xbox, I'm okay with the small increase that we've seen from Essential and Premium. $1, $2, fine. That's not really much of a big deal, right? But when you increase a subscription service by $11, that's something you have to reconsider. Can I continue doing this? $34 before tax? Should I go down to the lower tier, or should I just cancel it altogether because I don't feel valued as a customer? Once again, that is not cool. You know, Game Pass used to be the best deal in gaming. I used to go to Costco and purchase the 3 months at a time for $49.99. Now it's $68.99. You're still getting a deal with like the price hike, but that's still a lot of money to like just front. I can't justify doing that anymore. But how about we do some quick math right now? Your yearly total for Xbox Game Pass is $407.88 before tax. Now, if we do the 3-month bundle and buy that 4 times, it is more affordable. You're saving quite a bit of money, actually, about $125. So your new total for that year, based off of the 3-month purchase, is now $275.96. Like I said, about $125 in savings. Definitely the better route to go for sure. But remember, you don't own any of these games. These are just all rented games, essentially, you know? Like, they come in the service, they come out of the service. Call me old-fashioned, but I'd rather go out and purchase 4 games and be okay with that, knowing that I can play them whenever I want. I can come back and play them 10 years from now, really, right? In conclusion, Xbox Game Pass really is a great subscription service at face value. Just what it is on the surface, it's awesome. The Netflix of gaming, if you will. But with how much Game Pass Ultimate is and the lack of time that I personally have, it's just not for me. You know, like, I can't bring myself to pay $33.99 every month for games that I'm realistically not going to play day one, for games that I'm not going to get to in a month or 2 from now even. It's just all going to end up sitting in my backlog. And with that being said, like, I think I'd probably just downgrade to the premium version of $17.99. That just makes way more sense to me. Microsoft, if you're watching this, if someone tells you about this, I just want to let you know you used to be the best deal in gaming. Who didn't want a video game Netflix? I knew I did, but with everything going on, like, it's just too much to commit to from a price standpoint. Think about your consumers a little bit, right? Go back to the drawing board. Get on the same page with us, or like meet in the middle with us, you know? Or you're just going to continue to lose consumers. And then what happens to Xbox? You're just going to dissolve? Are you going to become a Sega? What's going to happen? But anyways, what do you think about this? Do you think the price hike was reasonable? Is everything being added to Game Pass justifiable to be paying more? Or do you even have time to be playing video games as a whole? Let me know and sound off in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion. Let's debate. It'll be fun. If you liked what you heard and what you seen here today, be sure to give it that thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you can give it a thumbs down. I swear I won't be offended in the slightest. Not at all. Not at all. If you really liked it, give it a sub. If you really, really liked it, hit that bell notification to be informed as to whenever I decide to upload another video. It could be 3 years from now. It could be tomorrow. Who knows? Once again, I'm Patrick, and thank you so much for choosing Double Double Games as your video game news. Cheers and peace out.